There's nothing quite like going back to watch a movie that you haven't seen in years and suddenly realizing a now huge actor has been hiding in plain sight all along. These appearances are often so fleeting, so devilishly devious that you can be forgiven for missing them even if you've seen the film in question literally dozens of times, but they are always sure to make you say, "Oh my god," when you do notice them. And with that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are huge actors you didn't notice as extras in movies. Jack Black, Demolition Man. If you're a fan of 90s action movies, there's a good chance that you've seen the Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes starring sci-fi actioner Demolition Man at least a couple hundred dozen times. Despite this though, you've probably never noticed that a future comedy A-lister shows up late in the movie for just a single solitary scene. In one of his very first acting roles, a 23-year-old Jack Black appears as Wasteland Scrap number 2 in the scene where protagonist John Spartan heads underground to meet Resistance leader Edgar Friendly. As one of Friendly's underlings, Black stands to the right of Dennis Leary throughout the scene, but because Leary blocks Black's face from view in almost every shot, there's only a small window of time to spot Black wordlessly hanging out. He gets one blink and you'll miss it close-up, and that's about it. Enough that even hardcore fans of Demolition Man still have no earthly idea that future comedy royalty is a day player in this scene. Angela Bassett, Kindergarten Cop. Now this is an especially hilarious one because the extra in question is actually the best actor in the whole movie, albeit the world hadn't yet recognized her incredible talents. In an early scene in the Arnold Schwarzenegger-led comedy classic Kindergarten Cop, as detectives Kimball and O'Hara are taking a flight to their next assignment, a stewardess asks them if they'd like some breakfast. And this stewardess also happens to be played by the legend herself, Angela Bassett, who then asks Kimball if his wife is okay when she hastily runs to the bathroom to throw up, being pregnant and all. Bassett has about 10 seconds of screen time and 2 lines of spoken dialogue in the scene, but her presence is so unexpected that you can't really be blamed for failing to notice her every single time. Gerard Butler, Tomorrow Never Dies. It's pretty common for up-and-coming actors to cut their teeth playing bit parts in James Bond films, whether as villains or basically throwaway minor characters. The latter was ultimately the case for Gerard Butler, who makes an incredibly difficult to spot appearance in Pierce Brosnan's second outing as James Bond, Tomorrow Never Dies, in just his second ever movie part. During the early sequence where the frigate HMS Devonshire is sunk, Butler appears on screen for a few shadowy seconds as a member of the crew, reporting on the dire status of the ship. Yet, given that Butler is both concealed by low lighting and speaks in his native Scottish twang, counter to the usual transatlantic accent that he sports in movies these days, he is incredibly easy to miss. In fact, without cranking up the brightness on your screen, you'll have a hard time making out his facial features at all. Somewhat ironically, Butler was later in contention to play 007 himself in 2006's Casino Royale, though of course that never came to fruition. Jennifer Aniston, Mac and Me. It's not exactly a secret that Jennifer Aniston's career had humble beginnings in the likes of 1993's cult schlock horror film Leprechaun, yet her first movie role actually came an entire 5 years earlier. In 1988, at just 18 years of age, Aniston appeared as an extra in the legendarily awful E.T. ripoff Mac and Me, which is really less of a movie than it is a feature-length advert for McDonald's and Coca-Cola. Speaking of which, Aniston can be spotted for a few scant seconds in almost exactly the film's 1 hour mark, sitting on a curb and watching a dance routine taking place in the McDonald's parking lot. Only Aniston's profile is visible on screen, but that's just enough to make her about noticeable, even if you'd almost certainly never know it was her without someone pointing it out first. Elijah Wood, Back to the Future Part 2. Though Elijah Wood was of course an incredibly famous and recognizable child actor, his career began in obscurity with a small, easily missable role in Back to the Future Part 2 at the mere age of 7 years old. When Marty McFly travels to 2015 and enters the nostalgic Cafe 80s, he sees 2 young boys figuring out how to play a light gun game called Wild Gunman. Marty shows the kids how to play it, at which point one of them dismisses it as a baby's toy because you have to use your hands. A horrific prospect in the highly advanced future of 2015, and the pair walk away in disgust. Now, Wood here is credited merely as Video Game Boy and plays the less vocal of the two kids, and in an interview with Deadline did say that being a young fan of the first film and then getting to work on the sequel was, quote, completely mind-blowing. Kevin Costner, Night Shift. Kevin Costner is one of those statuesque actors who feels like he's been around forever, especially that he won a Best Director Oscar for Dances with Wolves all the way back in 1991 at just 36 years of age. But Costner spent a decade working his way up to that enviable position, and his second movie role was in fact the illustrious part of Frat Boy Number 1 in the classic 1982 Ron Howard comedy Night Shift. Roughly halfway through the movie, when Bill decides to host a raging beer-fueled party at the morgue, keep an eye on the young fella standing behind him. It's Costner, of course, playing one of the inebriated youngsters getting absolutely blitzed in the mortuary, because why the hell not, I guess. Costner absolutely blurs into the chaotic scenery here though, so he's definitely not the easiest actor to spot, especially as we're so used to seeing him look grizzled and middle-aged, not young and clean-cut. Sigourney Weaver, Annie Hall. Sigourney Weaver became an icon the moment Ridley Scott's Alien was released back in 1979, but 2 years before that she made her first appearance in Annie Hall. Now, this film includes early roles for a number of actors, such as Christopher Walken and Jeff Goldblum, though they're an absolute cakewalk to spot compared to Weaver, who is near impossible to notice without knowing her presence beforehand. Weaver appears at the very end of the film, credited as Elvie's Date Outside Theatre, distinguished only really by her towering height. Leonard Nimoy, Them. The late, great Leonard Nimoy will of course forever be best remembered for his unforgettable performance as Spock on Star Trek, and of course being the director of 3 Men and a Baby. But more than a decade before he won that career-defining role, Nimoy had a teeny tiny part in one of the most iconic creature features of all time. Them, a 1954 sci-fi film in which a series of atomic bomb tests mutate ants into giant man-eating monsters, sees Nimoy make an uncredited early appearance as Army Sergeant in Information Center. Nimoy has about 30 seconds of screen time as the aforementioned sergeant and speaks a couple of quick lines before making his way out of the movie. It's a tough cameo to spot, given that we all have such a firmly regimented idea of how Nimoy speaks and looks as Spock, but here, looking and sounding more like his regular self, he doesn't draw attention to himself at all. So if you did manage to catch this on your own, then well done. Tobey Maguire, The Wizard. 1989's family comedy The Wizard is surely best remembered for being a glorified commercial for both the Nintendo Power Glove and Super Mario Bros. 3. It's an unhinged enough piece of work that the presence of a mullet-sporting 13-year-old Tobey Maguire in his first ever movie role seems positively ordinary, and is therefore quite often overlooked. Maguire appears on screen for about 20 seconds just after the finalists for the Video Armageddon tournament are announced. He's visible on the far left of the movie's infamous antagonist Lucas, wearing a pink shirt and rocking the aforementioned mullet. Credited as Lucas's goon at Video Armageddon, it's a wordless role where he merely stands around with Lucas's gang and mugs a little, but that face is still very recognizably Maguire's. Except, who among us sat down to watch The Wizard and ever expected to see young Peter Parker? If you're not looking for him, it isn't surprising that you'd never spot him. Elizabeth Moss, The Last Supper. The 1995 cult black comedy The Last Supper features a fleeting appearance by a 14-year-old Elizabeth Moss, and when we say fleeting, we really mean it this time. Though Moss had actually had walk-on roles in over 20 projects prior to this film, she makes a rather odd appearance in this ensemble satire by appearing on a piece of paper, and that's it. Moss plays a missing girl called Jenny Tyler, whose face is visible on missing posters throughout the film, though we never actually see her physically appear in the movie itself. It's a strange enough appearance to almost make you believe that Moss filmed a small physical role that was ultimately cut during post-production, not that anybody involved with the film has ever stated as such.